one of the biggest things I will tell the audience is, no matter where you are on your journey, progression is better than perfection. So don't procrastinate. Don't think, oh, I've got to be at the same level as this person or that person. Just start and just keep doing it. Make your mistakes, fail forward, learn from the mistakes, grow from the mistakes, and just keep being consistent, because it's not easy by any stretch, but if you are consistent, you will win.
This is Max from Black Income Creators Podcast, and I'm here today with Dr. Tru Powell, and I'm going to allow him to introduce himself to the audience.
Hello, everyone. It's really, really great to be here. My name is Dr. Tru Powell, and I'm excited to speak to you today all things personal branding, my career, what I've done today, and hopefully to share some wisdom and knowledge.
But can you tell us a little bit more about how you started in the...
Yeah, of course. Yes. So firstly, I believe that it's my purpose in life is to use my platform to platform others. I do that through various organisations. So one of the organisations that I run is the Black Business Magazine. And the magazine is a premium publication that exists to platform, celebrate, champion Black businesses, entrepreneurs and professionals in the UK. I also run the Multicultural Inspire Awards, and to a similar vein to the Black Business Magazine, that exists to celebrate and champion, recognise, those people from marginalised communities who are doing great things in their community and in business. And then lastly, I do lots of work with entrepreneurs, professionals, CEOs, leaders, working on their personal brands, positioning them in a position of authority, helping them, exercise their leadership skills and giving them credibility and visibility through coaching programs. And I guess all of that stuff leads back to my divine purpose, if you like, which is to use my platform to platform others.
So what inspired the magazine then? Because that's quite a lot of anything with content is quite a lot of intensive work.
It is. And I guess, so I have a business partner, shout out Justice Williams, MBE, who actually ran a magazine 15 years ago, and this is no coincidence. It was called True Life Magazine. And she wanted to get back into publishing, and she actually approached me with the idea. And at the time, I was, the Birmingham answer to Malcolm X and shouting all things black, 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 black. I just love saying black. And so she approached me with the idea of having a Black Business Magazine, and felt that I was the right person to partner with. And as soon as I heard the word black, I was all in. And we just hit it up from there. And then we had a few conversations with brand partners, specifically Lloyds Bank, who after the first 15 minutes of conversating with them about this idea, they were all in as well, which was absolutely amazing. And they sponsored our very first edition. But I would love to take the credit for it being my brainchild, but it really isn't. It's Justices who wanted to do a Black Business Magazine and asked me to be on board with it, and I was like, absolutely.
Oh, that's good. And then you said the Multicultural Awards.
Yeah, so it's the Multicultural Inspire Awards. So we've actually got the inaugural event in 2025, which is absolutely incredible and amazing, and I can't wait for that. But I've always been in events. My history is event management. My history is putting on events, putting on awards, putting on galas, and I've done that throughout my career. And actually, I spent 8 years at the MBCC Awards as a director and shareholder and CEO, and building a brand to a national recognised brand, bringing in celebrities and VIPs and really heavy hitter sponsors as brands, and kind of giving it a blueprint and making it a recognised, established award ceremony, one of the biggest actually award ceremonies in the UK, attracting 900 plus. And I just felt like there were so many more people that needed to be recognised on this scale. There's so many more people, so many more award ceremonies that we could do that could recognise and celebrate some of our inspirational people in the UK. Hence why I felt it was important that I stepped down from MBCC Awards and allowed the team there to continue in its greatness and create a brand new award ceremony to recognise brand new people.
Okay. And just going back a little bit further, can you just tell us a little bit about what it was like sort of growing up, Black families in Birmingham, sort of, when you were young? Because I think people forget that, that other places exist. And I just want to give them that kind of like, where are you coming from?
Yeah. So you would call me somebody who was kind of everywhere. So I actually was born in Handsworth. I lived in Handsworth until I was about 4 years old, and then I moved to Newtown, B19, and then I moved in my later years to Aston, shout out B6, and those areas growing up was, I would say, very, very difficult. Now, my mother was a single mom, Black woman, 7 kids, 6 of those were boys. 6 of those were boys. And life was difficult. Life was difficult. I'm not ashamed to say, we lived in poverty, very humble beginnings. And one of the things that I am really happy to say is that although we didn't have much, our household was full of love and we never wanted for a thing. And I think that's a testament to how my mum made it look so easy when really it was a very difficult task to bring us all up and being in poverty. But life was difficult. Life was surrounded by gangs and drugs and violence and all of the stuff that you will find in the inner city area. And I guess the important part of it was the upbringing, was those conversations that I had with mummy, was those those conversations and her whispering life into us and showing us actually that there's life outside of what we can see in the physicality, and showing us examples of people who are doing extremely well and how we can do that. And honestly, that experience and that showcasing of something different was actually imperative to, I guess, all of our upbringing. And I'm really happy to say that out of the 6 boys, it may not seem like a win, but coming from the inner city, none of us have been imprisoned, none of us are on the road, none of us, we all have respectable jobs, we're all pretty much married, there's, and that for me is, I contribute that to my mum and what she done for us in those formative years.
Yeah, because it's so easy to be a statistic coming from those kind of environments. It's like you say, out of 6 of you, for none of you to have fallen into the normal traps of like Black youth in the UK is amazing. And I suppose what you're saying is that like she didn't limit your beliefs. So she wasn't that mum that was like, yeah, you have to do, you can only do this because this is what we're set up to do, kind of thing. So
child, she didn't, and she always made us think big. But one of the things that she did do, and she's from old school, right? So both my brother and I were, dare I say, quite talented young people in terms of the arts. And I always say that had my mum had got behind us, we probably could have been the next Usher. But she was very much secondary art, school and education first, and made us get down and do our schooling and education. And, I don't wrong her for that, because one of the greatest gifts that I've ever been able to have, and what I teach my kids is the ability to be able to critically think about things and not accept things at face value. Yeah. And that's what education has done to me. It's made me into a critical thinker where I can objectively look at things and not accept it as the normal or face value. And that was one of the reasons why we were able to see outside of what you would call the 4 gates of the ghetto, if you like. But at the same time, I do believe that if mummy got behind my singing career, then I would have been in the next Usher. I know it would have been. But, I don't hold that against her now, child. don't hold that against that. But yeah, we moved. But yeah, to go back to your point, definitely that was she didn't limit our beliefs, and she spoke life into us and told us that we can be anything that we wanted to be, and not to just subject ourselves to what we see around us.
And in terms of like the education route, so what is it that you think? So you did sort of normal GCSEs, A levels, assuming. So what was it that you focused on when you were looking at that sort of stage in your life? Were you already interested in business at that stage, or?
I was, but I didn't know it. So I always would. I'm not one of those, and I'm not going to say that I'm not one of those that sold sweets in the playground and like that was not me. I did not do that. But what I did do was create events, create shows. So me and my brother created a talent show when we were younger, when we were about 7, and we got talent from around the area. And we did sell tickets in order for people to come in. And we performed at talent shows. We performed in school productions and plays, and very much creative. So in our spare time, we would lend that to anything that was performing arts or creative arts. We would make our own shows. We would dance in dance groups. We would do all these kind of things to be creative, and that's what I guess filled our time. When growing up, I'd done media studies because I wanted to be a journalist, and that's what I was striving towards. So media studies in English, did that in A level as well. And then something hit me to say, actually, I've done these courses and I don't know if this is what I want to do. I don't know if this is where I want to be. So then I doubled back and done another year of A levels in performing arts and theatre studies because I just felt like I needed to experience what that was like studying it. Did that, started working, got a taste of a little bit of money and what that looks like. All mind, it wasn't big money, but for me back then it was like, ooh, £800 a month. Whoa, I'm rich. And so I decided to take a gap year after college and work full time and see what that was like. And then I went to uni. And then when I went to uni, I did communication, culture, and marketing with high focus on event management. And I think it was that degree that really made me kind of be able to critically think, as I mentioned at the top of the conversation, and really kind of dissect media, dissect marketing, dissect the world around us, dissect what politicians are saying. And I guess that's now followed me throughout my career because I'm always speaking up on things or shouting about things or being what you would probably call now a social commentator on different media platforms and giving my voice of reason and opinions about different things that are happening in the world today.
And I think you mentioned at some point there's something around your purpose, because I think a lot of people, when they're looking at degrees and looking at what they're going to do with their careers, focus on like the money. Like you said, £800 a month sounds like a lot when you're coming from certain environments. But actually, I think what you're saying is that all of the jobs that you mentioned, journalist, etc., were all kind of leading you towards like the, presenter. It's all about the event thing, the experience for people, bringing people together, that kind of stuff. Which sounds to me like it's part of the purpose.
And check this, like I was putting on events at 7 years old with those talent shows. So when I look back on, like, I was absolutely, definitely living what I was living back then, what I was designed to be, and even when I started my own business, the first official business that I started and went self-employed with was an event management business. I was creating events for people and creating experiences and to platform people and platform others, which, is something that I think would never leave me.
And in terms of like, you're talking about people helping people with their personal brands, etc. When do people typically come to you in their journeys?
So there's a few different points. So some people will come to me when they're first starting, because they want to build their brands in order to help build their business, and that's absolutely fine. And then there's other points where they come to me where they've probably reached a milestone like 6 figures within their business. And it's at that point they kind of want to market themselves, get out to help market their business. So they want to do more speaking engagements. They want to get more press. They want to win more rewards. They want to get more credibility in order to help build their business and to help build their brands. But I guess essentially everyone will come to me when they feel as though they need more visibility or they need more credibility for them and their businesses. And when they see that pain point, when they feel that pain point, when they see their competitors getting work that they should be getting and they're not necessarily better than them, the only difference is that they're being seen by people in their networking and so forth. That's when they're like, well, why is that happening? Happens there out here, and I know that my work is better than theirs, but they're cleaning up because of their personal branding. So we then need to make sure that you match that. So then that's kind of when they spark starts kind of ticking in their head and start thinking, oh, I need to start building my brand.
And are the majority of people that come to you sort of from marginalized communities?
Yeah. So, and I guess that's probably down to the work that I do and what I champion and the voice that I am. But and they say your vibe attracts your tribe, and so a lot of the time, yes, a lot of people from marginalized communities do come to me. Although my client base is very diverse. I've got white, Asian, Black, Chinese, all ethnicities that come to me and ask me to work with them.
And how is it? I mean, I think again, it's like, now it's a little bit different because we've got the internet, but how is it when you're working with brands that might be very sort of steeped in there, like there might be a very Chinese kind of, brand or personality or very Black, etc. How is it working in this sort of predominantly white media space in terms of promoting that?
I always tell people that that's their superpower. Their difference is their superpower. And one of the things, one of my superpowers is the fact that I'm able to work with people who can then authentically promote themselves, who they are authentically and unapologetically, right? So I give them, processes and procedures and templates that what they can take and they can build for their own brands and for their own authenticity, for their own authentic nature, and then of course apply it to what they're doing so they can share their messages in the way that they share their messages. It's not always easy because, as you know, we live in a very white supremacist world where the ideals are white people. Everything seems to be whitewashed in this westernized world that we live in. But it's about adapting to a lot of those practices that are here to uphold white supremacy, but then injecting our personality and injecting our culture and injecting what we do unapologetically in order to be seen and in order to be ourselves and feel comfortable. So when we do perform, we're performing at our optimum because we feel comfortable.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of Black entrepreneurs struggle. It's like, do I be my authentic self and stick to an audience that reflects me, which it might be a limited audience, or do I expand, which you've done, speak to other audiences but give them the tools that allows them to be authentic? It's quite a tricky balance.
I know that because I've been there. I've been there where I've felt myself like being really pigeonholed in one demographic, and hey, look, I love Black people. I don't mind if Black people want to use me and as their instrument or tool to get up in life. But one of the things that I found was it was very limiting for me, not just financially, but also just very limiting for me if I'm only going to deliver one. It's not challenging me. It's not challenging my work. why can't I work with somebody who is completely different to me? And why can't I give them the tools in order for them to be themselves unapologetically and show up in the world as themselves unapologetically? You know, the tools don't change, the methods don't change. It's only the person. And if you apply the same methods, then your brain will grow equally, just as much as mine or any of my Black clients. So I'm thankful that I'm able to separate framework, blueprint, and tools from Blackness, whiteness, ethnicity, gender, etc., etc.
Yeah, sociology. What would you say is like the biggest mistake that entrepreneurs tend to make when, in terms of their personal brand?
Looking at others completely and utterly, going on social media, flicking through Instagram, seeing people who are wearing a Rolex, staying outside a Ferrari that's probably not theirs, and mimicking that and trying to be that. And everybody's now made it. Everybody's now a successful 8-figure entrepreneur. Everybody's now a teacher, a coach, and I can help you. And it's just infuriating because that is not what business is or entrepreneurship is. But I think we live in the world. And I say that to say what I really don't like about it, and not even what I don't like about it, what's concerning is that behavior speaks to insecurity, speaks to self-esteem, and speaks to the need for you to feel validated. And then it starts manifesting in different ways, such as buying followers when, if you feel like you need 10,000 followers plus, so you'll go and buy them. You feel like you need to win an award, so you'll buy that. You feel like you need to win some kind of press coverage, or you need to be in the paper, so you'll go and buy press coverage and so forth. And for me, those things, if it's not organically grown and reached, speaks to your self-esteem and what value you place on being, I guess, celebrated or seen or validated by third parties.
And I think there's something around, you mentioned value, and there's something around what value does their service or product have? Because a lot of the time, like you say, the Instagram looks like, they're living their life, Riley, whatever, they're jet setting and doing all this kind of stuff. But then when you actually, it's always, but when you actually ask them about, let's say it's a coaching course that they're trying to sell or whatever, there's no real value behind the product. And so, you might go to them and they'll be like, yes, I'll get you in like 20 magazines and I'll do this and I'll do that, whatever. And that doesn't exist because they actually haven't bottomed out their blueprints or worked out exactly what it is that they need to do to give the customer, a proper service. So it's almost like, I don't know, it does feel a little bit fake, and it's difficult to figure out who are the authentic ones and who aren't.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's why I make it I make an effort not to shout about or speak about where I live, how I live, speak about any cars that I have, speak about, I very even rarely speak about my turnover and 6, 7, 8. Like that's not how I want to work with clients. That's not how I want to attract clients, and I know a lot of people do that and use those strategies. And I'm not saying that those strategies are wrong. If they work for you, great. But what I am saying is that that's not what I want to do to attract the client. What I want to do to attract my client is the value, the testimonials, the people that have helped, the content that I'm putting out, me putting out one social media post that would get my prospective client from A to B, with value and information. And those are the people that I want to work with, rather than people wanting to work with me because they've seen me in Dubai on a yacht with XYZ. Like that's not my game. And that's not how I roll.
And I think there's something, and we see it in the music industry here. It's like, artists like Stormzy, etc. When they're British and they present as British and they don't try to mimic American stuff, it sells. Do you see what I mean? But when you're trying to be Americanized, and I think that whole sort of jet setting, Dubai thing, whatever, is very much like trying to copy the reality TV life of, America's. And I think it's really important for British people, but Black British in particular, to keep some of the authenticity around where they're from. You know what I mean? And voice rather than trying to be like the next Jay-Z or whatever. In business, it doesn't work.
Completely agreed. And we know that, when we look at how the world is and we look at some of the most imperialistic countries like America, we tend to feel like that they are the blueprint. And because they are the blueprint, we tend to mimic and follow them and follow what they're doing, even to the point where I hear people speaking in an American accent and I'm like, hello, are you from London? Like, what are you doing? And again, it speaks to how we not only look at ourselves and value what we bring in the culture that we have in the UK, but how we believe and think that this is the blueprint and this is what we should be following. And it's just, it's a challenge. It's such a challenge, and I don't know how we would ever overcome it.
What are the strategies that people can stand out in a saturated market in terms of their personal brand?
So some of the things that I say to help people really stand out in saturated markets is, first thing, obviously the value. So making sure that your value is on point, making sure that you're consistently delivering. So you're not here today and gone tomorrow, and making sure that your audience is being moved from A to B. Like, I think that's so important. And then the second thing that I would say is visual identity. So by that, how are you showing up? How are you aesthetically showing up? And that's just not what your hair is like and what you're wearing in the physicality, but it's also your social media, your website, when people look at you and face value, what are they seeing? What colours are they seeing? Have you got professional images done? What typography have you got on your website and in your social media? And all of that stuff, I think all of that stuff is important because it speaks to not only your professionalism, it also speaks to your uniqueness and how bold are your colours and do they stand out on a grid? Do they stand out if I was to scan a room and look at you in person? So an example of that is I'm going to a gala in a couple of weeks' time, and it's quite a big gala and multiple people are going to be there, including VIPs and celebrities and stuff. And I know that the dress code is black tie with a touch of red. And I know that everyone's going to be men in a black tie with a red bow tie and may have a red pocket. And I'm to myself, I'm thinking, how do I stand out in a room where everybody's going to be wearing a black suit, a red bow tie, and maybe a red pocket or not? I was like, I need to get something made and created that's black with a touch of red. That's not necessarily a black tie, but that's going to turn heads. And that kind of makes up also like the visual identity of a person, like what you're wearing and how do you wear it. So that's something that I definitely think people can do to stand out. And the third and final thing that people can do to stand out is network. Network and be around the right people and associate yourself with the right people and the right brands, and be consistent with that networking. Because what would happen is that when people see you at different events or see you consistently networking and out there, then they would want you at their event and they would want you to work with them on different projects and different things. And they would want to be in the rooms that you're in. So I think that those are the three things that I would say definitely focus on. Value, how good is your value? How good is your content? Your visual identity, what does that look like? How are you showing up? And networking.
And I think networking, interestingly enough, is the one that people might struggle with the most. So I go to a lot of networking events and you can sort of see people who just stand, the wallflowers and they don't engage. And, I won't remember them and I've probably seen the same people 5 or 6 times, but they've never come and introduced themselves. They've never started initiated any conversations. So it's even like how it's not enough just to turn up. You have to be active in your networking and not just be like, I ticked the box. I went to 5 events this month. It's So I think that's quite an interesting sort of like, people need to think about how they see. It's the optics, isn't it? It's the optics, but it's also the delivery. So making sure they do it. If you were taking someone on, typically, how long do you work with them before you sort of?
So I have different programs. So my signature program is a spotlight program. This is not a plug or a sell, but it's but it's the spotlight program, and that's 6 to 8 weeks. A group coaching program where we go on and we learn together, and I typically run that twice a year. And I only take a handful of people, and then I close the doors once I reach the maximum amount of people that's allowed on the program. And and that's one thing. And then I also do what I call VIP days. So VIP days is where it's a bit more bespoke. It's one-to-one, and I work with an entrepreneur or CEO or a leader on directly what I think they need. So beforehand, I'll have a consultation with them, and then I tell them what I think they need in order to build their brand, and then we will work on that on the VIP day. And then I do a half a day, which is what I call a strategy session with VIPs, and then I have self-study courses. So nobody really wants to work with me one-to-one. They just want to hear my amazing tone and voice and self-study themselves and learn themselves, and they can buy or purchase a self-study course and listen to that in their own time and build their brand in their own time.
And what is your ambition for these businesses?
So my ambition is, for the magazine, is to provide inspiration, motivation to the next generation of Black entrepreneurs, to show them that they can achieve and they can be inspired by what we're showcasing and what we're doing, and to really grow that business into an international business whereby it's not just magazines that we're doing. We're moving into the next phase of the business, which is subscription boxes. So we're doing a Black-owned subscription box, so you can subscribe, and every quarter alongside the magazine you'll get a box with 5 to 7 Black-owned products to discover, to try, which is fantastic. So we're moving into more kind of subscription boxes with the magazine, and doing a lot more events. So we did our gala last month, and we do our unveiling. We're doing summit next month, a Black Business Summit to offer information and so forth. So really to be a gateway for Black people to develop and to be inspired. For the awards, a very similar vein. So by 2030, 10,000 inspiring individuals from minority groups will be recognised through this platform. By 2035, that will be 30,000 people will be recognised, and by 2040, over 50,000 people will be recognised through this, internationally recognised through this platform. And my mission would always be the same: to recognise as many people and celebrate as many people from diverse communities as possible. And I guess for the coaching and the consultancy, for me, that's just to help as many people as I can in business. I know what it's like to have a brand, to win awards, to be in the press, to be on the TV, to have an award-winning podcast, to network like crazy, to have a black book that's incredible, that can help me with my business, and to really kind of leverage brand partnership, secure brand partnership, sponsorship, and all those incredible things, only because my personal brand is where it is, right? So because I've been fortunate enough to have all those things and to benefit from all those things, I want to help as many people as I can with the tools and the blueprint and the framework to help them with their brand, so they can then benefit from the same.
And you mentioned media coverage, and I think that's something where a lot of new business owners or entrepreneurs really struggle. Like, at what point do you get media coverage, and how best to do that? Because I think some try with the PR a bit too soon, Yeah.
Well, I say as long as you've got a story to tell, you're happy to tell it. And the question that you should always ask yourself as an entrepreneur is why this story and why would people want to listen to this story? Not necessarily the entrepreneur story. What is it about the story that's engaging? And ask yourself these 3 questions. Does it inspire? Does it educate? Does it motivate? Or does it entertain? Like, it has to do one of those things. That's 4, can't count. It has to do one of those things. Inspire, educate, motivate, entertain. If it doesn't do any of those things, then you have to think about, is this a story worth telling? So if you've just launched a business, one of the things you should think about is, are you the first to launch this business? Is it the UK's first? Is it Birmingham first? Is it London first? Are you the first black person? Are you the first black woman? Are you the first black? So when I done my podcast, for example, I looked at the podcast, and my podcast ranked in the top 10 launching the business category. So I looked and I thought, ooh, no other podcast has any other black people been in the top 10. Well, yeah, obviously Stephen Bartlett, his number 1 rating. So he's a black male living in London and from Manchester. So we talked about, but actually, I'm the first black person in the Midlands to have a top 10 rated podcast in the business category. So that's the headline that I ran with. And that's the headline that was covered, the first black person in the Midlands to have a top 10 podcast in the business charts. And for me, that was incredible. So what story is it that you're going to tell? What's unique about your story? And usually it's you're the first of something, you've done something groundbreaking, or you piggybacked off an item that's happening at the moment. So another thing that I did was when I launched my consultancy work, and launched stuff around working with D&I and black businesses, it was at the height of where there was a race row about Meghan and what's racist, what's not, and microaggressions and all of that stuff. So I piggybacked off that and said, I just launched a new business to challenge some of these microaggressions and in the race world, and that got picked up. So it's about timing, it's about what's unique, and it's about building also relationships with journalists and being able to position your story to journalists so that they would listen and cover whatever you're doing.
I think it's that. I think it's about the relevancy, being, relevant. Because like you said, you could come up with someone and be the first thing, but you can be ahead of the curve. People are like not quite ready for it. And a lot of businesses are like that, not ready for it. And there people are like, okay, why do we care?
Especially in the tech space. Especially in the tech space, like that is that we're just not advanced as we would have, we should be. So if you're speaking about things that are really revolutionary, if people haven't gotten done yet, like people were speaking about AI 10 years ago, you try to create a conversation or get press coverage for AI 10 years ago, it wouldn't have happened. Yeah.
I think tech is like forever moving faster than people can keep up with. So then if you wanted to be relevant in that space, you'd have to like disrupt it a little bit and say something slightly controversial about AI rather than, I've built another AI website. Exactly. You'd have to be like, actually why AI may not be the best thing for your business. For example, like you lose human touch, your customers don't really understand how AI works. Emma popped a question in, the producer says, she said something around what role does social proof play in securing PR and how can entrepreneurs build it effectively?
Yeah, no, it does. So I think social proof is really important when you're building PR or when you want to secure PR. So one of the things that we do with the magazine is we do our due diligence, which is part of social proofing. So if we're covering a story and it's very heavily focused on numbers, we would ask for accounts, we would ask for your P&L, we'd ask for your cash flow, we would ask for your end of tax year. We would also ask for testimonials from people who used your services, which is important. We'll also look online, look at your social media platforms. Have you posted any testimonials? Are you doing what you're saying that you're doing? And also, there is a journalist code of conduct. So they, quote unquote, I know some don't, but they need to or should be doing their due diligence. They have to be responsible journalists. They can't just put anything and anything out and expect it to fly. And part of that due diligence is all the aforementioned things that I kind of just said around accounts and testimonials and all of that stuff, and doing what, and really kind of, I guess, affirming for themselves what you say you're doing and ensuring that's correct before they issue it on their platforms or before they talk about it or allow you to speak on their platforms, especially if you're appearing as an expert. They need to ensure that you are that expert and you are equipped and experienced to speak about that said topic.
Does a lot of it sort of stem from things like qualifications, or are they broader than that? Because I think sometimes that could limit people, couldn't it? If it's like, yeah, you need to have certificate in whatever it may be.
I think it's broader, unless it's obviously something that's a really specific industry like medicine. So if you're appearing to be like a doctor expert, then that you will need to have your qualifications and so forth as part of their responsible journalism. But other than that, I think it's usually experience, it's usually testimonials, it's usually social media, kind of looking at what you've done, websites. If in business, they may check companies' house to see how you're doing, etc., etc. But all of those things are social proof. All of those things are saying that you are good at what you say you're doing, or good at what you say that you do.
But, obviously now it's the UK, we're in September, we've got a new government. What kind of changes would you like to see? What do you think would support entrepreneurs for the UK? Or do you think they've got it about right?
No, absolutely not. So for me, I think... more support for marginalised communities, recognition of what Black business does for the UK and the economy, and how that operates and how that works. And I've interviewed and been around phenomenal Black entrepreneurs, and you would never believe that somebody like, I don't know, recent issue before the last, Bean Forbes runs a multi-billion-pound tech company who's a Black man, and we just don't see that. And
the visibility,
and the visibility is not there, and we are doing incredible things if given the opportunity. So I think more needs to be done to really support Black entrepreneurs. When we look at the most entrepreneurial community or group, it's Black people. We are the most entrepreneurial people. Like, we would get up and start up businesses tomorrow. But then when we look at the failures, it's Black people, because we're not given the opportunity or the chance to grow. We know that one of the fundamental elements of scaling a business is finance and access to finance. But unfortunately, when we look at access to finance, for some reason, Black people are just not given the same opportunity, especially when we look at like something like venture capital. Like, Black people are given 0.2% of venture capital investment. Black women are given 0.02%. So we're the most entrepreneurial community, but then we're the community that gets less access to finance, meaning that our businesses are not going to grow because we've got no capital to grow our businesses. We've got no capital to invest in marketing, to invest in staffing, to invest in systems and processes, to invest in all of those things that we need in order for our businesses to grow. Venture capital, banks and so forth, they're not entrusting us with that. So our businesses are going to collapse and we're not going to scale. So recognition that, ethnic minorities and marginalised communities do want to start businesses, are starting businesses, and do want to grow their businesses, but access to finance is one of the biggest barriers. And what can we do? What schemes can we run in order to make that happen?
And it's a shame, because we look at other marginalised groups and they don't go to the banks. They self-finance. So I've had a couple of clients who are Somali and they never borrow. It's just not in their culture, etc. So they literally, if somebody's starting a care business, they will all like dip in, put in 10 grand, whatever, get the care business. Do you see what I mean? It's like the Black community in the UK is not homogenous, you know, like Jamaicans and most of in different parts of Africa. We don't have that synergy around let's get together and, you know, self-fund and then, you know, money back in the pot. Even sort of like, you know, the partner thing, etc. It's kind of little pockets here and there might do it, but then it kind of dies out after a couple of years and stuff like that. So I think there is something around, the government could do more, but the community could maybe look at trying to be a bit more cohesive in how we spend our money, because we're all, like you say, we'll all start a business tomorrow. We're all doing it separately.
There is no synergy, and I think that's one of the reasons why we do the magazine, so we can get businesses to see people and collaborate with each of them, and why we do the events and why we do the awards and why we do all these things, where we're providing platforms for relationships to be birthed, and, you know, and so people can collaborate and co-work with each other and so forth. So
is it Justice Williams, you said her name was?
Yeah.
So even that the two of you come together and it's a collaboration. So she did it by herself. Now this is a new kind of, you know, whatever with a collaboration. It's given it a new twist, a new spin, and hopefully it's like much more successful. So I think it's really important for people to do that. So I like that. I kind of like that story. Is there anything that you'd like to leave the audience with?
So I get this question asked a lot, and for me, I one of the biggest things that I will tell the audience is, no matter where you are on your journey, progression is better than perfection. So don't procrastinate. Don't think, oh, I've got to be at the same level as this person or that person. Just start and just keep doing it. Make your mistakes, fail forward, learn from the mistakes, grow from the mistakes, and just keep being consistent, because it's not easy by any stretch, but if you are consistent, you will win.
Is there anything that you've done that you'd be like, shouldn't have done that?
Oh gosh, 100 things. I've had so many different businesses, like so many different businesses that I've had, like that I've done I've done a website business, and I was like, what are you doing? You don't even like tech. Like you can't even put a website together. Like, what are you doing? Yeah, definitely, like businesses like that. I was like, but you know, it happens.
I think sometimes that comes from like one person will ask you to do it and you don't want to say no because you're like, they need it. So you're like, yeah, I could easily do that and set up a business. You know, you're like, yeah, tech isn't my thing. Why am I here? Yeah. So I totally get it. It's sometimes we think, yeah, why not? Why not give it a go? And then you're like,
yeah, like, absolutely. Yes.
Connection, events, helping people build their personal brands. That's really strong in terms of like your purpose. Tell us a little bit about the PhD, because it was an honorary doctorate, wasn't it?
Yes. So honorary doctorate in business administration, actually, from Aston University, which is for me, you know, is amazing and incredible and such a huge achievement, because I'm something that I can carry with me for the rest of my life, actually, and just one of those achievements that doesn't necessarily happen to young, well, I'm not so young now, but Black men who grew up in the inner city area of Birmingham. You know, it's quite an anomaly, to say the least, for something like this to happen. So I'm grateful and aware that badge of honor and that badge, no pun intended, and that badge of responsibility, you know, very, very seriously, and recognise that actually this achievement will inspire the next generation, particularly from those areas, to keep, you know, to work hard and to be recognised.
I think it's and typically it's like you have to have written a certain amount as well, isn't it? You have to put out a certain amount to be able to even be considered. So like it's like 3 books, or you know what I mean, that they want to see the body of work. Everybody just thinks, oh yeah, it's an honorary
Yeah.
doctorate, therefore I didn't have to do anything for it. But typically,
you still have to work for it, and you still have to commit certain hours to the university in terms of helping and strategizing and formulating some of their, and helping with some of their students and so forth, and having a relationship with the university is also important. So it's not and everybody cannot get a doctorate, an honorary doctorate. Like, it's not something that everybody can get. So yeah, it's one of my greatest achievements, I would say.
And we did talk offline a little bit, and you just started explaining to me that your name has Shakespearean roots. Could you
Yes. So there is a character in The Taming of the Shrew.
I love Taming of the Shrew. It's my favourite Shakespeare.
Yeah. So and there's a character in there called Petruchio. And my actual name, if you like, is Trucio. So Tru is my short name that everyone calls me. I don't think I've ever used Trucio other than on my passport. And even in school and on my certificates and stuff, it's Tru. But anyway, that's a different story. Back then, you could have done that. So Trucio was the character, and my mum just kind of got rid of the PE and then just kept Trucio. So my name is actually from Shakespeare.
What was it about that character that she was like, or did she just like the name, not necessarily the character?
I think she didn't necessarily. I don't know. I think it was more. I'm a twin, and we were born C-section, so she was in hospital for a long time. The nurses just dashed some books to say, read. There was no TVs at the bottom of the bed or anything like that. It was just like books or whatever it was, and this book was in there, this play was in there, and she just read it, and then she just kind of liked the names, and she named us Peligo and Trucio, which was characters out of the book.
Yeah, because when you said Petruchio initially, I was like, okay, so both P, but actually you said she cut out PE, so it's just Trucio, and then okay.
But there was a character in there called Ilago, and she cut the PE from my name, Petruchio, and then added it to Ilago to create Pelego, and that's the name of my brother. My twin brother.
I thought it was maybe like a Pele thing.
No. Yeah. No. It was being creative and
I guess once you get to child 5 and 6, you're like, you know what?
Yeah.
I could create that.
Quite what me. Name them anything can go on. Come here, anything.
Well, thank you so much. How can people find you?
So they can online on website trupowell.com. They can find me, or on social media it's Tru_Powell. That's TRU_Powell on all platforms. That's Instagram, TikTok, and X, and then on LinkedIn it's just Tru Powell.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for taking the time with us today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day of the first day of school.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Really, really good fun. Thank you.